With the news that Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond, the heads of Xbox, are on the way out, it really begs the question, what is the future of the Xbox brand, and should you consider buying an Xbox in 2026 or beyond? Now, there's a lot to say about the politics and the future of the brand. But before we get there, my bigger question really is one that's practical right now. Should you buy any Xbox today? And if so, which one and then why? Let's start with the cheapest way to get into modern Xbox gaming, which is the original Xbox One. A launch model will run you as little as $60 on eBay these days. We've actually found really cheap ones for as little as like $40 at Goodwill. But I think the more interesting move is to get an Xbox One X. For about $125, it delivers a lot more. One of the strongest points for Xbox is backwards compatibility. Microsoft has built what I really think is the best support for older games in the entire industry. You got original Xbox games, 360, and Xbox One titles that all largely just work. The One X has the bonus of running a lot of these older titles upscaled at higher resolutions and sometimes with better frame rates. It's honestly still a pretty impressive box. And here's the thing, tons of these older Xbox titles just never made the leap to the digital-only libraries that we use today. So if you want to explore 25 years of Xbox history for cheap, the Xbox One X is genuinely a great way to do it. It's also a pretty solid 4K Blu-ray player, if you're Alex. Yay. Now, the obvious catch is that support for current games is basically zero. The Xbox One is actually losing support even faster than the PS4 has, which does kind of make sense because the Xbox One was kind of outsold by the PS4 like 2-1, but look, here's the thing. You don't buy an Xbox One to play brand new titles. This is for playing the old school stuff. You know what's crazy? Did you know that they made a whole game based on the TV show? Hilarious. One of the things I really like about the Xbox One X is that, especially playing some older titles like from like the 360 era, a lot of those games actually run at 4K on this, which is nice. Even beyond that, there's still plenty of games from the Xbox One era that this is the best place to play. For context, this is more powerful than like a PS4 Pro. The downside though is that the Xbox One wasn't as popular. Something like Marvel Rivals was recently released for PS4, but not for Xbox One. There are also some live service games such as Fortnite, which run pretty well on the One X. You know, after recently looking at the PS4 in 2026, I was legitimately surprised with how usable it is. And while the One X is a little bit more expensive, it is a much better pitch for older games. And while not everything is compatible, especially on the older side, most games that you're gonna wanna play will work straight out of the box, or a lot of those games are also including Game Pass. I still think that in 2026, the One X is actually a reasonable value. All right, so let's talk about the current gen. The Series S and the X are the obvious answers if you want to play new Xbox games today, right? Well, starting with the Series S, I mean, this thing launched for $300 back in 2020. And for a while, it was genuinely such an easy recommendation. I think it's easy to say that the Xbox Series S is the best deal in gaming in 2024. The Series S and the Game Pass combo was the pitch to getting into current generation gaming for cheap. But after 2 price hikes in 2025, it now sits at $400 to start. Yikes. Now, used, you're looking at something a little bit more reasonable, like $250, but I mean, still, it is a long way from being the little budget console it used to be. Then there's the Series X. This launched at $500 and is now a whopping $600 for the digital model and $650 with the disk drive. Yikes. For context, a PS5 with a disk drive is $550. It is basically impossible to recommend the Series X. I mean, there's nothing against this as being a great piece of hardware, but it is stuck with a terrible price. Oh no, I have all the assists on. I'll say I still do like the Series S. I mean, yes, I think that people expect it to be the little brother console, but it's actually really not that bad. People underestimate what the Series S can do. It is not the most powerful console, but it plays games fairly well, right? I mean, yeah, you're running at lower resolutions and lower settings than the big brother, but I would say that it is probably 75% the experience for less than half the price. And as far as I know, every game that runs on the Series X runs on the Series S. And I think given the fact that I accidentally hit the wrong button to take a photo of my Corvette, it is a reasonable way to play Xbox games today. But the elephant in the room here is the PS5, because it's a more powerful console, it's gonna have probably a longer lifespan, and it's not that much more expensive than what you're getting with the Series S. Look, I'll be honest, don't buy a Series X right now. Like, there's just no reason to do it. To me, the Series S and the Series X were such a hopeful look at what could have been, but I feel like it never fully delivered. And that's kind of sad if I'm honest with you. Here's where the story gets a little bit more complicated. What about Xbox not on the Xbox? Haven't you heard? Everything's an Xbox now. Now you might be asking,
how could that possibly work? Everything's not an Xbox.
Well, if you listen to marketing, it absolutely is. And let's start with Game Pass. Xbox Game Pass launched back in 2017 at $10 a month. It was a great deal pretty much from the jump. You had access to a pretty good selection of games that has grown steadily over the years. And when Ultimate came along in 2019, it added PC access and Xbox Live for only $15 a month. I mean, if you bought like a couple of AAA games a year, instead of that, you could get access to pretty much anything you'd want to play on the Xbox. It was kind of a no-brainer. Unfortunately, in 2023, right after they purchased Activision, super weird how that coincidence happened, prices started climbing. First to 17, then to 20, and as of October 2025, Game Pass Ultimate with access to all those fancy day one releases has jumped to $30 a month or $360 a year. For perspective, Sony's top premium tier of PlayStation Plus costs only $160 a year. Game Pass Ultimate is now more than double that. Now there are cheaper Game Pass options. There's Essential at $10 a month, and especially Premium at $15 is still an alright value that gives you a good chunk of the library and cloud access, but it's pretty clear that the golden age of Game Pass is over. So the Xbox hardware and top tier Game Pass are a hard sell now, but have I got good news for you. Have you ever heard of this new thing called the computer? It's a way to play your Vidjamigo games on the World Wide Web. Microsoft used to make a pretty clear distinction between Windows and Xbox, but today almost every Xbox exclusive is available alongside your entire Steam library on PC. Now of course, I want to be clear, the PC is not a perfect console replacement. Windows is still kind of rough on TV. You can't navigate things easily with the controller, you gotta deal with drivers and Windows updates, but like as a long-term investment, Windows PC is kind of future-proof in a way that the Xbox hardware most certainly is not right now, especially if the full-screen experience from the Xbox Ally eventually makes its way to more regular gaming PCs. But what if you don't have access to the latest and greatest gaming PC or a small family fortune to afford the RAM to go inside of one? Well, cloud gaming to the rescue! Or not. Look, I'll be honest, I have not traditionally been the biggest fan of Xbox cloud gaming, mostly because even to this day, I find the experience to be just a little bit inconsistent for fast-paced gaming, such as shooting games, racing games, and stuff that I normally play. But I will say that's just me. Plenty of people I know, in fact, actually a couple people I know in the office regularly stream Xbox games to their phones, and they're pretty happy with things. I'm not calling them out, but their names rhyme with. And because Game Pass lets you stream games on pretty much anything from your TV to your fridge at this point, it is actually a real option for many gamers, especially because it does seem like there's likely going to be a free ad-supported tier coming at some point. The biggest downside for me really is that GeForce Now exists, which delivers a better streaming experience in my opinion, and you have the ability to play your own game, not renting access to a subscription. There is a good argument that Xbox isn't a console anymore at all. It's Game Pass. It really is the tension at the heart of the Xbox brand right now, which brings us to the most controversial Xbox. That's right, the PS5 is now technically an Xbox-ish. If you play Halo and Gears of War and Sea of Thieves and Forza Horizon on a PS5, I think it's as much of an Xbox as my toaster. Now, currently, there are only a handful of these Xbox exclusives that are already released on the PS5, but here's the thing, I genuinely think this is a good thing for gamers. More people playing more great games on whatever hardware they already own can only be a positive thing, and many of these Xbox titles have been dominating the best-selling PlayStation charts. Let's not forget, the idea of console exclusives was always to keep you locked into the Xbox, PlayStation, whatever. I mean, Microsoft is still kind of playing this game by launching some titles such as Forza Horizon 6 later on the PS5 than the Xbox. And of course, they love to dangle the idea that you don't have to pay if you just sign up for Game Pass. Come on in, the water's just fine. Because we're slowly boiling you like a frog. But I've just gotta admit that this whole situation is just weird. I mean, Microsoft spent $69 billion, not nice, acquiring Activision, and now all those games are just happily being sold on the competition's hardware. But I mean, at this point, I think it's pretty clear that this is the plan. Xbox isn't defined by a box under your TV anymore. It's whatever you want to play, even that's on a DualSense. It's getting a little icky.
No, change is good.
No, it's not. We've got Xboxes, PlayStations, PCs. I mean, these are all great places to play games, But there's one more way to play Xbox that I think is actually the most important piece of this entire puzzle. This is the ROG Xbox Ally X. Now, I reviewed the standard Ally a few months back, and I'll be honest, while there's a lot of potential, I kind of bounced off of it. The concept is cool. It's a Windows handheld with what Microsoft calls the Xbox full screen experience. Basically an Xbox style interface sitting on top of Windows, so you're not stuck trying to tap tiny little desktop icons on your 7-inch screen. And it is a genuine improvement over what Windows handhelds used to be like. But it was also rough, right? It was one of those things where I quickly went back to my Steam Deck. But in prepping for this video, I figured it was time to give the Ally another shot to see how things have evolved over the last 6 months. And I wanted to play Expedition 33. I initially downloaded it on my Steam Deck, but it was so low resolution that even I was like, okay, this is not good. So that's like the perfect time to give the Ally X a shot. And story time. About 30 minutes into playing Expedition 33, the kids needed something, so I set the Ally down, went to put it to sleep, plugged it in, and when I came back 6 hours later, it just didn't go to sleep, much like the kids sometimes. Sure, the screen looked like it was off, but the game was still running, the fan was still cranking, and Steam was happy to inform me that I'd been playing for 7 hours. The best part was, the battery was almost dead because I plugged it into a low wattage charger that couldn't handle the game running at full tilt while it was asleep. Now, if you watch my original video, you'll know that I had sleep issues in that too, but those were different. That was because I was having issues with stuttering and crashing when I tried to wake the actual Ally up, but this was kind of worse. The Ally pretended to go to sleep. If you've used a Steam Deck or a Switch for that matter, you know that you can put a game down, put it to sleep, and pick it up days later right where you left off. And as someone who regularly dips in and out of games at a completely random schedule when I have a few minutes free, this whole sleep mode isn't just a nice to have. I do not want to waste half of my gaming time reloading a game from scratch and then it decided it needed a Steam update, blah, blah, because it closed in the background. Like, I just want it to work. Now, to be fair,
it went to sleep.
Not fair at all anymore.
To be fair, I did ask Ally owners on Threads the other day what they think, and the response was actually more positive than I expected. A lot of people genuinely like the hardware and the direction that Windows is headed. But the thing that really stuck out to me was that a lot of the happiest Ally owners have replaced Windows entirely with a Linux-based OS like Bazite. When the people most happy about your product are the ones who wiped the software your entire strategy is built around, that should tell you something. And that really is the point not only of this segment, but kind of this whole video. The Xbox Ally isn't just some goofy little handheld. It's a prototype. The next generation Xbox is being built on this concept. Windows underneath, Xbox interface on top. This is what Microsoft is betting the entire Xbox brand on. A world in which you have your Xbox games, your Steam library, and your Game Pass subscription all living on one device with all the benefits of a console. I think most of us can agree that sounds awesome. But the execution, it's got a ways to go. I want to be very clear. The answer to the title of this video, the question really behind this whole thing, is that unless you are in a very specific edge case, you really shouldn't be buying an Xbox in 2026. Really, all eyes should be on the future. And I think that that is really where Microsoft have focused, because 2025 was bad, right? It was just a very bad year. And I think that it seems clear that they are ready to move on to the next generation. The future of the brand really depends on what the decisions they make over the next 18 to 24 months on the next generation Xbox. And the big one feels like it's already been decided. Xbox is becoming a PC. Now, not even getting into rumor town, we know that Microsoft are working directly with AMD to make a next generation Xbox. And just the other day, AMD on their earnings call specifically called out the fact that their work for the next generation Xbox will be ready for 2027. If this really is launching as a next generation console next year, the Xbox Ally I think proves to me that it is not there yet. It's not even that close. And from the rumors, it does seem like it is going to be a more premium device. Again, Microsoft themselves have said premium on several occasions when discussing the next generation. Now, my understanding of where the next generation sits is that a lot of it will be ready on time, but there are two things holding it back. One of which is Windows. The software, as I think we've established, is not there at the moment. But that's also to say that it is a gargantuan task to actually get Windows in a shape where it is going to be not only good, but great on a console. The other part of it is the RAM crisis. We just talked about how Sony are likely going to be pushing the PlayStation 6 a year or two because they really have no incentive to lose money selling a PlayStation that has either worse specs or, the RAM is massively expensive, and hopefully things calm down over the next couple of years. But I will tell you, I do not think the Xbox team has that same luxury. The existing hardware is a dead man walking, and they should really take advantage of 2026, their big 25th anniversary, to start talking about it publicly. It is kind of sad to think about where the Xbox brand is. Even if you were a hardcore Sony pony, you still need Xbox to be healthy, right? Because I think that if we live in a world where Sony gets to do whatever they want with the PlayStation, I think that that is bad for basically everybody. Competition breeds innovation, it pushes everyone forward, and so I very much hope that Microsoft can use the 25th anniversary and all the cool new games and some good news, hopefully, that they have for 2026 to use that as a springboard into the next generation to get people hyped again. Because I'll be honest, I think that a lot of people, myself included, have almost gotten fatigued with all of the rumors and the speculation and this and that. It's like people are almost not even over it, they don't even care. So, to summarize, don't buy an Xbox in 2026. Wait till next year, and let's hope that Microsoft are able to put together all of the puzzle pieces in a very short amount of time to make this thing awesome. Because there is a scenario here where the next generation of Xbox is powerful, it's got a couple-year lead on the PlayStation 6, it gives you all the best parts of Windows and all the best parts of Xbox, and it is a legitimately great place to play with a ton of amazing games. Or could be the beginning of the end. All this brings us to the news that Xbox is parting ways with both Phil Spencer as well as Sarah Bond. I don't think it is a difficult thing to wrap your head around, the fact that normally when the two heads of your brand are shown the door at the same time, that is not some kind of statement or indictment on the lack of success. I think that Microsoft, as a very large corporation, has looked at gaming and probably said, hey, look, we just invested all this money buying all these studios, and what do we have to show for it? And so a change in leadership is not a crazy thing to see. I think it's, as much as I don't want to say it, understandable after the disaster of a year that 2025 was, that a reset, both in plans but also in people and leadership, does make some sense. It is going to be sad to see Phil and Sarah leave. I have met them both. I've spoken with Phil on a number of occasions, and I think that it was incredibly clear that he was a true gamer. And while you can point to the idea that he was given the reins of Xbox in one of its darkest days, right after the Xbox One launched, and it was a complete disaster, and I would argue that, especially for the Xbox One generation, he pulled it up in a relatively decent way, right? I mean, things like backwards compatibility really was pushed forward to try to get something for the gamers. You had Game Pass, you had the Xbox One X. Obviously, the Xbox One generation was a bit of a failure, but at least it was not as bad as it could have been, especially compared to what it looked like in those early days. But ultimately, when you look at how the series consoles have ultimately not really performed, Game Pass seems like it has stalled a little bit. It does, unfortunately, kind of make sense that this is the time for him to, retire and move on after working at Microsoft since 1988. But there's an enormous amount of speculation to be had about what this all means, and I do want to try to keep it down to the facts. Xbox is still a thing, it is still going forward to the best of my knowledge, and my hope is that the plans that have been laid over the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years are able to go and see themselves to fruition, and we will be getting not only new Xbox hardware and everything, but I will say that 2026 is going to be I feel like it's a cliche to say it, but a real make or break year for the Xbox brand. So if you are interested in learning about this make or break year, definitely be sure to subscribe to the channel and ring-a-ling the ding-a-ling button, because I will assure you, this is certainly not the last Xbox video we're gonna be doing on the topic. Whew. I started working on this video, I'm like, we're gonna be playing some old consoles, it's gonna be fun. And we've ended up in a slightly less than fun way to end the video, haven't we?